create the next part of the scenic area in the centre of the layout, I've started by using some leftover pieces of timber to create a basic framework and an underlying shape to support the aluminium mesh that I'll use to create the surface. Keeps it really lightweight and inexpensive, easy to do. A few screws. Quite a few of these pieces are also held in with hot melt glue, which is a really useful tool to have in the layout build, and I also use that to attach the mesh as well, as you'll see in the next part. I have my aluminium mesh and I've cut it approximately into the shape that I want. I'm just going to use a square-ish section at the moment. I'll fold the little tab down here. I'm going to use hot melt glue to attach it along here and then across here, and then work the mesh up towards this edge and start to contour it and lay it along this way and attach it as I've worked it into an approximate shape. The great thing about this aluminium mesh is you can continue to work it, and it isn't really until you put something on to make a shell that you've committed to a shape, and even then you can still alter it and adjust it. Using hot melt glue, there's a clue in the name, it's hot and it's a glue, so don't touch it with your fingers because it's going to stick and then continue to burn. I've laid a line of glue along this piece of timber, pushed the mesh in using a trusty wallpaper scraper, and once it's set, it's now fully attached. To do the section here where I had the tab, simply, and this time I actually pushed it in from underneath, but I did actually put the glue on the mesh. Don't worry if you've got any gaps along edges, because you can always add another bit of mesh on, or you can make that up with the scenery top piece. This is just really a main support and it doesn't have to go absolutely everywhere. I've worked this down and into an approximate shape, and I've given myself a little bit of slack so I can move it around to what I want. This is where my Metcalfe end scale church is going to go, but as you can see it's all a bit lumpy bumpy around the bottom. So what I want to do is create something that will firm up the mesh and into a flat foundation type pattern without losing all of the undulations round about. Made a start on the shell that's going to firm up the mesh. It's a form of papier-mâché, very simple, paper and some paste. The paste is actually 10% PVA let down with water, and the paper, this was gleaned from some Amazon packing paper. You could use anything, newspaper. I've seen various people use toilet paper as well, although it seems a bit wasteful using something that hasn't already done its purpose. And I wouldn't use second-hand toilet paper. So just going to keep working my way through, building it all up. 2-3 layers, and I try and interlock it just so that the fibres going in different directions, but they are with paper. And that's going to just make a nice seal. So it'll stop scenic material falling through the mesh. It'll also firm up the mesh, and then we can work from there. And about 40 minutes later, it's all had one coat of papier-mâché applied.
The rock faces on High Fell are made of tree bark, and I was reminded what a fantastic modelling material this is when I was watching a Marklin of Sweden tutorial. Martin does some fantastic work, shares his knowledge and skills freely, so definitely recommend checking out his channel. I found a local tree that had been felled and the bark was coming away, so it's easy to harvest some. After a couple of weeks in front of the radiator, it's dry, and you may get a few little visitors, but they're harmless. Give it a clean up with a wire brush or similar. You can use the side-on profile, so this is where you've got the annual growth. You can use that to simulate your rock face. I've elected to use it this way. It takes paint really well. It's already got some really great colouring in as well, and of course it's free.
So the bark rocks have been put in place. They're just simply held with hot melt glue, so they're nice and firm. Obviously not going to be load bearing, so I don't need to worry too much. And then these areas here actually infilled with some material to simulate some more worn down sections before this area here where I'll just roll into grass. I'm going to have a little bit of an experiment, see how this goes. I'm going to make some of my own sculpting material. There are various brand names available. So what I've done is, with some of the paper I put it into my smoothie blender machine, which I have used to chop up bits of foam and also the rest of it. So I'm going to add some of this, and then to some trade filler. This is Gyprock 60. If you buy that rather than polyfiller, you get huge amounts of it for next to nothing, and that is even in the big DIY stores. I'm going to mix it round and add some water and then see what I can come up with. So here's my experiment. I've mixed up that chopped up paper with some, say, some gypsum, Gyprock 60, which polyfiller, any kind of household filler, it's all the same stuff really. Added some water, got it to this kind of almost porridgey cottage cheese type texture. I've seen a few other people on YouTube do similar things, and that's where they seem to get it to before applying it. It was a bit sort of suck it and see with water. At first I think I ended up going a little bit too much on there, but just added some more of the dry materials in there, and that's got it to this texture. And I'm going to see if I can apply it on the layout and see if I can get it to the shape that I want. Well, so far I'm quite pleased with my homemade sculpting material. Looks a bit messy at the moment. We'll see how that looks when it's dried fully. Even though I've used quite big areas of it here, hopefully the fact that it's the Gyprock mixed with paper and wetted, that will slow down the drying process, so I'll stop it from cracking. But as I say, we'll see how it looks when it's dried properly and take a view from there. But so far, looks like it's doing quite well. Well, here we are 2 days later, and the vast majority of my homemade sculpting material has dried. I'm very pleased with the texture, and also it would appear that the slower drying process has also prevented the shrinking and cracking which I was getting sometimes just by using regular plaster. So very happy with that. That's a win. So that brings us to the end of part 1 of this scenery build up here on High Fell. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed some of the ideas that I've had and introduced on High Fell, and that it might give you some ideas as well. Please do check out some of the other videos and content that's on the channel. It's all for fun, so happy modelling, keep safe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.